So our next unit or lesson is in Unit 5, and we're going to be looking at change elevation. And of course, that's going to be continue our exploration into integers or positive and negative numbers. So if a bird starts at 20 meters and changes 16 meters. So let's just draw our number line. You probably already know the answer to this, but we want to use the same method each time because then we'll get used to it. So we've got start, face, move, end. We know that the bird starts at 20. So I'm going to put that right in the middle because that's where I'm starting. And changes 16. So it doesn't say it, but it's positive. And right now all that we're doing is adding. So we're always going to face to the right as of right now until we start subtracting. So we're going to move forward 16. So we're facing to the right, so forward is in this direction. And then we're going to end. Well, if we move to the right of 20, 16 units, we'd get to 36. And like I said, I am sure that you knew the answer to this intuitively, but just in case you didn't, or more likely to make sure you understand the method for doing each of these, we're going to set it up that way for each of them. So our next one, we have a butterfly starting at 20 meters and changing negative 16 meters. So I'm going to draw my number line. I know that I'm starting at 20, and for now we're facing to the right on all of these because we're adding. So start here at 20 and face to the right. And then changes negative 16. That means we're going to go back 16 units. So back from where we're facing would be in this direction to the left, but remember we think forward backward, and we end 16 units back from 20. So in other words we're taking 16 away from 20, so we end up at, just to be sure of your math, 20 minus 10 of that 16 would be 10, and then 6 more away from that 10 would get us to 4. So the answer here, let me fix that, that looks icky. The answer here would be 4 meters. Now, our next one starts at, and just use the same method every time because then you'll never get it wrong because you're just always using the same exact method. A diver starts at 5 meters and changes negative 16 meters. So we're starting at 5. For now, we're always facing to the right. So I'm going to draw my number line. I'm going to put 5 in the center because that's where I'm starting. I'm facing to the right. And our diver changes negative 16. So that means we're going to go back 16. So back would be in this direction. So I'm moving backwards, and it's going to be 16 back. So that means I should take notice of when I hit 0. We'll make 0 there. And then keeps going in this direction, ending about here. So that would indicate my 16 units that I'm moving, 5 of them are right here. So if I've already moved back 5 of the 16, that means I still need to move back 11 more. So that would make the ending place negative 11. So the answer is negative 11 meters. Make sure you don't forget that negative there. It kind of gets lost when I circled everything, but it is in fact negative. Okay, next, the final elevation. So we've got a whale starting at negative 9 meters and changing 11 meters. So the whale is starting at negative 9 because he's under the ocean. So I'm going to put negative 9 right in the center of my number line. I'm going to face to the right because for now I'm only adding. So I'm facing to the right. I'm going to move forward 11. So that means we're going to be going in this direction. I'm negative 9, so it means I'm 9 below 0. And 11 is larger than 9, so let's just mark where that 0 probably would be. And then I'm going to end just past that. because if I think I've already moved 9 of that 11, how much do I have left? Well, I have 2 more, so that means I'm going to end at positive 2. So that's it, positive 2 meters. I've got a fish starting at negative 9 meters and changing negative 11 meters. So I just have to, again, set everything up. It's the same every single time. And just like in the, the proportion problems, once we get into the rhythm of doing the same thing over and over, then we should never get it wrong, provided that, we double check everything. I know in the last video I said something aloud that was correct but wrote down the wrong number. I do apologize for that. Maybe not the last video. That's not true. In a couple of videos ago. Anyway, I'm going to start at negative 9, so I'm going to put negative 9 right in the middle. And I'm going to face to the right because that's all that we're doing at this point. And then I'm going to move. It's a negative number, so I'm going to move back 11. So that means back would be in this direction. And I'm going to end 11 away from where negative 9 is. And since I'm going to the left, those numbers are going to continue into the negatives. So if I want to think about this, I'm at negative 9. If I move one place to the left, that would be negative 10. And 1 out of that 11 that I have to move, that gives me 10 more. So I'm already at negative 10 here. I'm going 10 more. So this place would be negative 20. So I moved from negative 9 in this direction. I ended at negative 20 meters. Moving right along. One of the particles of an atom is called an electron. I believe you guys did some of this in science this year, if I remember correctly. Regardless, one of the particles in an atom is called an electron. It has a charge of negative 1. Another particle in an atom is a proton. It has a charge of positive 1. So proton, positive 1, electron, negative 1. The charge of an atom is the sum of the charges of these electrons and protons. A carbon atom has an overall charge of 0 because it has 6 electrons and 6 protons. And negative 6 plus 6 equals 0. Okay, so they give us that example right here. So they're talking about the carbon atom. Here it is. It says it's got 6 electrons and 6 protons. So they indicated those 6 electrons with negative 6 and the 6 protons with positive 6. We add those together, and of course we're going to get 0. So as I look down this, we know that those opposites, when I have the same exact distance from 0, in other words, where, with negative 6 and 6, both of those are the same distance from 0. So therefore they cancel each other out. They become 0. So do we have any others here? Let's just look. Our neon is positive 10, or negative 10 and positive 10. That will also give us 0. Our oxide, that's different. I'm going to leave that one for now. Copper, also different. Tin is negative 50 and positive 50. So that has an overall charge of 0 as well. So that just leaves us with oxide and copper that we still need to figure out. So I'm going to go ahead and put these zeros in here. I meant to do that ahead of time. Okay, so here we are, oxide and oxide. It's the same process. Start, face, move, end. I've got less room, but I can still do it. My number that I'm starting at is negative 10. I'm facing to the right. So this is negative 10. I'm starting here. I'm facing to the right. This tells me to move forward 8. So that's in this direction, 8. So remember, when I go from negative 10 to the right, those negatives are getting closer to 0. So go from negative 10 to negative 9, negative 8, etc. And if I just keep going 8 units, I would end up at negative 2. So that's where I end, negative 2. So therefore the overall charge of oxide is negative 2. And our next one is copper. So again, I'm going to do the same exact thing. Like I said, same stuff every time. The more you do it, the better you get at it, like anything. So I'm starting at negative 27. I know I'm going to face to the right. So here we are, negative 27 facing to the right. I just always put it right in the center because then I can move in either direction. I don't have to think about it all at once, just one piece at a time. I'm facing to the right. I'm going to move forward 29 spaces or units. So moving forward. Now remember, this is going to be a very condensed number line just because of what I'm left with. Now from negative 27, I know that I'm going to get to 0 in 27 units. So from here to here is covered as negative 27, but I have to keep going beyond that. So of the 29 I've already moved, I still need to move 2 more. So that means I'm going to end at positive 2 or 2. So the overall charge of copper is positive 2. Next, now I get to add these, and hopefully you watched that video on adding and subtracting, although we're not subtracting quite yet, but how to add decimals. And again, remember, we're not using calculators right now. We're not going to be able to use them when we take our test, and part of the state testing also doesn't allow for us to use calculators, and more than likely you'd be expected to do something like this. So these are both positive. So if the signs are the same, find the sum. Same sum. So I'm going to stack my decimals on top of each other. So this is easy because they both have 3 digits. So I've got 14.7 plus 28.9. As you notice, they're stacked on top of each other. I've got 7. 7 plus 9 is 16. I'm actually going to change my color here. 7 plus 9 is 16. Carry the 1. 4 plus 8 is 12. Plus 1 more is 13. Carry that 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Plus 2 more is 4. So that is 436. But of course, I can't forget about my decimal. The decimal just gets dropped straight down from where it is. So my answer is 43.6. My next problem, I have a negative and a positive number that I'm adding. So the signs are different. Find the difference. Difference. So that means I'm going to be subtracting. So when I subtract, even though they're in this order, I'm really finding the difference of those absolute values. So don't forget that's of the absolute values, which is the distance from 0. So this would be 9.2 and 4.4. So what I'm going to do with those is subtract. So I'm going to do 9.2 minus 4.2, or 4.4, sorry. It is imperative to keep those decimals stacked on top of each other. That's where things can go terribly wrong if you don't. Okay, so I'm subtracting. I cannot take 4 away from 2, so I have to borrow from the 9. So I'm borrowing 1 from the 9, so the 9 becomes an 8. I put my 1 here, so now I've got 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 minus 4 is 4. I drop my decimal straight down, so it's 4.8. However, now I need to go up and look and see which one of these two absolute values is larger. So again, not the larger here and here, because if I did that, the larger would be 4.4. But that does not have the larger absolute value. 9.2 does. So therefore, I bring this down here, and my final answer has to be negative 4.8. These last two to go. All we have, so I'm still adding, and I see that the signs are the same. Find the sum. So again, very easy. I need to stack my decimals. So I've got 81.4. I've got negative 12. There's no decimal there. What do? Well, don't forget that decimal is just like the period at the end of a sentence. So if you think at 12 and at the end of 12, that's where the decimal would go. So I can put 12 and the decimal goes right after it. You're like, but I've got this 4 hanging out over here by itself. you can just simply put in a placeholder as 0. And I'm adding these together. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 1 plus 2 is 3. 8 plus 1 is 9. Drop that decimal straight down. I've got 93.4. And now I can't forget that both of these, the reason we were adding is because they have the same sign, but both of those signs are negative, so therefore my answer is also negative. So negative 93.4 is the answer there. Next, I've got my signs are different. Find the difference. Isn't it fun to sing the songs? It's fun when we get to sing the whole thing, but we're not doing that right here. Okay, so we're finding the difference, again, of the absolute values. This one we can kind of do in our head, but let's go through the process. So the absolute value, or how far away 51.8 is from 0, is 51.8. And negative 0.8 is 0.8. I'm going to be subtracting, finding the difference. So that would be 51.8. Remember, I line up my decimals, 0.8, and I am subtracting. So 8 minus 8 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. Bring my 5 down, drop that decimal straight down. Now the question becomes, what is the sign? So I look at these two absolute values. The larger of the two is the 51.8. So I take on the sign of that, and that is positive. So my final answer is positive 51. And now it is written right now as 51.0. And with the positive sign, you could write that as positive 51 without the point 0, or just plain old 51, because we assume that that's positive without any sign in front of it.